Oh, there you go. Bombards. And poof. Definitely not the most practical thing in the universe, but you do have to admit that it is kind of funny. So hey guys, welcome to another Warframe video, and today I want to take a quick look at another one of the Teal'c approved weapons, the Ferrox. You can get a blueprint for Ferrox from the Corpus Lab in your dojo, however since no one has managed to research it yet, I don't actually know what you need to build it, but since it's from the Corpus Lab you're probably gonna need field drone samples. And the research itself isn't actually too bad, though you're gonna need quite a few field drone samples and a little bit of oxium. The Ferrox is a Corpus version of the Grineer Javelin, so it's a javelin that comes with two different fire modes. The primary mode is pretty much a railgun, so it's very similar to the Opticore. It fires a hitscan projectile that you have to charge up, and you cannot fire half-charged shots. It will also fire the shot as soon as it's fully charged up, so you better have it aimed at something when you start charging it. Now it comes with pretty good accuracy, though the multi-shot rounds tend to fly off to the side a little bit. It has 30% critical chance, 2.5 times multiplier, and 10% status chance. It has a fire rate of 1.33 rounds every second, 540 rounds in total, 10 rounds in the magazine, and 1.8 second reload. Each shot will do 350 damage, 245 out of which is puncture, 70 is slash, and 35 is impact. The secondary fire mode will throw the javelin, which does high physical damage on contact and tethers all enemies within sort of 5-ish meters to the javelin, so it acts kind of like tether grenades for the Penta. And just like the Javelin, you have to physically run over the spear to retrieve it to use it again, and if you throw it off the map or somewhere where you cannot retrieve it yourself, it will reappear in your hands after a couple of seconds. Now, on top of crowd controlling the enemies and pulling them towards the spear, it will also zap them every now and then for 150 electricity damage. And while this unfortunately cannot crit, it can proc status. When it comes to modding the Ferrox, I have 3 different setups that I want to share with you, and the first one is a 3 Forma build where I've added 2 Vs and a dash, and this is sort of a cheaper version of the build that I ended up going with. And for the mods, I'm using Serration for more damage, Split Chamber for multi-shot, Point Strike for critical chance, Vital Sense for critical damage. Then I'm using Val Acceleration because without any fire rate, the charge-up time is simply far too long. It takes half a second, which may not sound too bad, but since you can't fire uncharged or half-charged shots without any fire rate, the weapon simply feels clunky. So I slapped on Val Acceleration because Speed Trigger was simply not enough. Then to utilize the depolarity that the weapon comes with, I'm using Hammer Shot, and this combined with Vital Sense brings the critical multiplier up to 700%, which is quite nice. And finally, I'm running Stormbringer and Infected Clip for loads of corrosive damage. Now, as I've said already, this is sort of a cheaper version of my full build, but it's still pretty strong. It only takes 9 headshots to take down a level 100 Bombard, 3 headshots for the Corpus Tech, 4 body shots for the Infested Boiler, and finally 2 shots for the Corrupted Moa. And it one-shots pretty much all the cannon fodder units even with a body shot. So yeah, even with a pretty cheap 3 Forma build, this weapon can still do a ton of damage, and unless you take it into sorties, you're gonna be one-shotting pretty much everything. The second build uses the same 3 Forma setup, but it focuses more on status for the secondary fire, and it's running Serration for more damage, Split Chamber for multi-shot, Heavy Caliber for even more damage, and honestly, the accuracy decrease from Heavy Caliber doesn't matter too much. Then I'm using Malignant Force with Infected Clip, and I'm combining that with Rime rounds and Primed Cryo rounds for a lot of Viro damage. And I'm using Viro damage because I just want to throw the spear down, let it proc Viro on enemies, and finish them off with my secondary weapon. And finally, I'm using High Voltage for a little bit more status chance, but also a little bit more electricity damage, which will combine with the base electricity damage for more damage and also some crowd control from the electricity proc. And this is the setup that I used in the clip at the start. And finally, the build I ended up going for, which is a 4 Forma build where I've added 1 more V where Vital Sense is, and I've swapped Hammer Shot for Primed Cryo rounds, and this adds 2,500 cold damage, which is far better than the 1.5 times bonus crit multiplier from Hammer Shot. And this is straight up just a more expensive and stronger version of the first setup. Now, if you don't mind the 0.5 second charge-up time on the primary shot, you can easily swap Val Acceleration for something like Argent Scope, which will allow you to do red crits after a headshot, or even Bladed Rounds, which will give you far more crit damage after you kill an enemy. Or, if you got really lucky, you can slap a Riven on there as well. And I almost forgot to mention that to use this weapon, you have to be at least Mastery rank 7. Now, to be honest, I like this weapon an awful lot, but since it's kind of like a bow or a sniper rifle or something like the Opticore, this is basically just Opticore on a stick, it suffers from the same downside. It's amazing when you take it versus the grenade because they have predictable movement, so you can line up the shots and you can predict where they're gonna move so you can hit your shots. Same with the Corrupted, even though you do have some MOAs and a couple of Ospreys and Nullifiers, which for single shot weapons are just a nightmare to deal with. But it starts to get kind of annoying when you take it against the Corpus, because they have Ospreys which have very unpredictable movement and MOAs which can stomp at the wrong time and lift their foot so you miss them completely. They also have Nullifiers, so you have to run into Nullifier bubbles and snipe the Nullifier and run out, which is kind of annoying when you have a Warframe that relies on a buff to do damage or survive. And overall, the Corpus are just a diarrhea of visual effects, so lining up your shots can be somewhat harder. And versus the Infested, it's just not much fun at all, because most of the time you're either gonna end up backpedaling through a corridor, trying to line up a couple of them so you can rail like 5 of them at a time, or you're gonna be staring at the ground because you have crawlers charging you. But this issue can be alleviated if you combine it with a frame that complements it, so a frame like Icy Avalanche Frost, where you can just hit Avalanche and clear a large group of enemies and then just use the Ferrox to snipe the beefier dudes. And this is how I've been playing with the weapon. I just slapped it on Icy Avalanche Frost and I've been having a blast. It's just fun to jump around and hit cool trick shots, and when there's too many enemies at once, I just hit Icy Avalanche and start again. I think the secondary fire is somewhat underwhelming, but then again it is kind of nice to have crowd control if you're running a frame without crowd control. And at the end of the day, it's not something you have to use, it's just something extra you can use for a little bit more crowd control. So overall, if you're a fan of single-shot weapons like the bows, sniper rifles, things like the Opticore, or you were a fan of the original Javelog, this is a weapon you should definitely get. It's a lot of fun and definitely worth the Forma that I've put on it. And that's pretty much it for the video, so I thank you very much for watching, as always, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.